Let's shift to QB number one because with the playoffs locked in, his health now becomes the biggest story in Buffalo. And here's the thing. Josh Allen at 90% is still better than most quarterbacks at 100%. I think we all can agree about that, right? But his mobility, though, his mobility, it's a part of who he is. And it's the engine of his offense. It's whenever we see Josh go into the booth and put on that Superman cape, he does that when he starts to take off and use his legs. Almost every single time. Well, if his foot is bothering him and he's compromised, even in the slightest, that might have some type of effect on his production going into this game against the Philadelphia Eagles. We don't know yet, but you still want Josh to get as much rest on that foot as possible. And I think the balancing act right here that Sean has to play is pretty important. Like, okay, playoffs are locked in. At the very worst, the Bills are a 7th seed. Currently, I think they're the 6th seed right now, just behind the Chargers and one spot above the Houston Texans. But then you also have to consider this. The AFC East, though, is still up for grabs. The Bills have to win out. They have to beat the Eagles, and then they have to beat the Jets, and then they're going to need a little bit of help. So I don't think that the Bills are in a position to where they can just kind of rest starters if they're still trying to win the division. I don't know. Like, what's the risk reward here? Do you want to throw Josh Allen out against a tough Eagles team? This is where Sean McDermott has to protect Josh Allen from himself. Josh would go out there with a broken leg if he could. So that's something that we're going to be watching because this team goes as far as Josh Allen can take them. But thankfully, this year, Josh Allen hasn't had the need to carry the entire team and the load by himself. Why? Because he has a man behind him who wears number 4. And my man, James Cook. Ladies and gentlemen, James Cook has officially arrived. He is the league-leading rusher right now. He's leading the league in 100-yard rushing games. He's got over 1,500 yards. And he's become the most consistent offensive weapon of the Buffalo Bills, not named Josh Allen. Picture this. Not only do the Buffalo Bills have the number 1 rushing offense in the NFL, that number 1 rushing offense also features the number 1 rusher in the NFL. So even with the compromised Josh Allen, in terms of his mobility, he has the luxury of turning around and handing that rock off to number 4 and letting him do what he has done all year long. James Cook, we saw him break out last year. But this year, he has taken it to a whole nother level. An absolute jump. And just the way he looks on the field, the way he feels on the field. Sean McDermott even mentioned the differences in what he's seen from last year to this year. He can just look in his eyes and you can tell he's on one today. James Cook has become the heartbeat of his offense. He really has. If Josh Allen is limited, we can go to James Cook and be perfectly fine. We have one of the best offensive lines in football. We have the best rushing offense in football. We have the best running back in football. And while I'm here, shout out to my man, Aaron Cromer. That man right there has been the linchpin, the man with the secret sauce for this Bills offensive line and rushing attack. Aaron Crum is phenomenal. Everything he touches when it comes to the run game becomes gold. Top 5 NFL. We know what he did his first stint with the Bills. Led the league in rushing. LaShawn McCoy did it, I think, like back-to-back years leading the league in rushing. He's a phenomenal offensive line coach and run game coordinator. Amazing. He's done the same exact thing with the Buffalo Bills this year and last year too. But really this year they took off. James Cook, man, he has earned every penny of that contract. And that contract that he got is looking like a major deal. So if we were going to give some kudos, some props to Brandon Beane, it's for that contract right there. Because James Cook has outperformed that contract without a doubt. But I'm so glad that we can rest in the fact that we have the best back in the league. And I was just thinking about this too. The shift in offensive philosophy and offensive identity under the leadership of Sean McDermott has reminded me in some ways of the Baltimore Ravens. Let's try to make this connection here, or this comparison. How did we feel last year going up against the Baltimore Ravens, especially in that playoff game? I mean, let's be honest. Many Bills fans wanted nothing to do with that matchup last year. Absolutely nothing, especially after the first matchup in the regular season when we got destroyed. We didn't want to see them boys in the playoffs. We know it. You know that. We didn't. Why? Because they have a man named Lamar Jackson who not only is dynamic with the ball in his hands, throwing the ball, but is a dynamic runner that you have to pay attention to. But in addition to what Lamar Jackson can provide with his arm and his legs, he had a man who wearing number 22, the big horse himself, and Derrick Henry, who was, what was he? Did he lead the league in rushing last year, or was he number 2 to Christian McCaffrey? Didn't matter. 1 or 2 didn't matter. He was a dog, a beast. Still is. So you had Lamar Jackson, you had that offense, that team, that offensive line, and Lamar Jackson. You have to take into account Lamar Jackson, his arm and his legs, but then also handing the ball off to big number 22, who at the blink of an eye can take it to the house, and ain't nobody stopping him. That team brought fear in the defenses. Fear. Bills Mafia. We experienced it. Well, now, let's look at the Bills team this year. How do you think defenses feel going up against the Buffalo Bills? Forget the narrative. Forget what we as fans think. What do you think outsiders think about the Buffalo Bills? When they look at their offense, and though they don't have the best wide receiver core, probably, below average, okay? But when you have Josh Allen, the reigning MVP, with his ability to throw the ball all over the yard, wherever there's not a blade of grass, not a piece of turf that Josh Allen's rocking arm can't reach. But then you also have to take into account his legs, scramble mode, and taking off and running like a friggin' moose, 6'5", 240 pound. Okay, running when he puts on that cape, like you have to take into account Josh, that guy right there. But it's not just him, because now you have one of the best offensive lines. You have the number 1 rushing offense in the league, and you've got number 4 behind Josh Allen, who is the league's leading rusher right now. I mean, you think about what number 4 is doing. 40 scrimmage touchdowns in 64 career games. Let me say that again. 40 scrimmage touchdowns in 64 career games. The only Bills player to reach that career mark in fewer games was Thurman Thomas, Hall of Famer, who did it in 63. James Cook is that man. He is that man.